Hello, hello. Um, I'm feeling deeply disturbed and my spirit is grieved, okay? The Lord has been showing me little pieces of evidence, little signs in these last couple weeks in a different way than usual, okay? They are trying to desensitize, and by they I mean sorry, like social media. um Sorry, just bear with me, okay? They are trying to desensitize people in media, okay? Whether it's on like Facebook, Instagram, or on TV, or things like this, even commercials, okay? The Lord has been showing me things lately, just in this last month or two or so, where they're trying to push the envelope. And if you really pay attention, you'll see it too. But this is the thing, is they're trying to like do it subtly so that they can start. I'll give some examples of what I'm talking about, okay? So tonight I was watching Big Brother, and I have made mention of it in my past video, right? Like a couple weeks ago, that I was watching Big Brother, and like the Lord knows that I watched that show, right? I have watched Big Brother, I think it's been on for like 25, 26 years, something like that. It's one of the longest running shows. And I've watched it for literally the last 10 years, maybe more, but for sure the last 10 years, season after season. And it comes on like every summer, just in the summer, right? For 3 months, I think it is. And I'm telling you that other than maybe the odd off-color like joke or remark, it's pretty much been a PG like 13 show, right? Like if my kids were in the earshot of it, I've never worried about them overhearing any of the material on there, you know? I wouldn't necessarily say it's for kids, but it's no different than any other, you know, TV show that's on TV, right? It's not necessarily for kids, but if a kid overhears it, it's not a big deal. And obviously there's things that happen on the show, right? Because they're on camera 24/7, but the producers cut the racy stuff out, the inappropriate things, so that it can be made for TV. And so overall, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that has been anything extreme in any other season. Not last year, not the year before, not the year before, not the year before, etc. Okay? This season has been on since June, July it premiered, so they've already been in the house. It's been over 2 months that this show has been showing, and it shows 3 times a week. So I've already watched like 30 episodes or something at this point. There's already been quite a few, like it's down to the end. It's going to be wrapped up in the next 2 weeks. And only in the last couple weeks have they went weird and started to talk about things that I found strange, but I thought it was just a one-off, right? But now tonight's episode was like extremely disturbing. And that's why and then the Lord led me to make this message, and he like allowed me to see such things because he wants me, knowledge is power, right? So in order for me to know, this is how I can know these things. So like I said in past words, he'll point things out to me so that I can be made aware, okay, to give the message. So the first thing they did was randomly out of the blue, about maybe, I'd say 6 or 7 episodes ago, so maybe only like 2 weeks ago-ish, there's one girl that's on the show, and her name was Kelly. She's been voted off, but all of a sudden, randomly out of nowhere on one episode, they're starting to talk about that she's a witch or whatnot. And then they said that the first, like on some random episode, and I was like, huh? Like that's weird because they don't normally do that. And even with this season, when it started out where they were introducing the cast, there's a few people that were talking about God. So like initially when this season had premiered, I was like in a positive vibe because I was like, wow, there's like actually a few people on the show that were wearing like cross necklaces and talking favorably about God and saying they're Christians and things like this. So if anything, if we're going to talk religion, they were talking like in a godly, righteous fashion, right? So I was like, oh, that's cool. And so then the show went on from there. Now this season there hasn't been like anything out of inappropriate or out of character or anything, right? And then all of a sudden it got to where, like I said, just recently, over halfway through the season, and it coincides with the same time frame that the Lord's been showing me this stuff, like in this last month, they start saying that one of the people on there is a witch, and she doesn't give off those vibes at all. And so I almost found that it felt like it was like scripted in, like that they just said that about her, right? And then after that, it was like the next episode, she starts talking about it herself out of the blue randomly. That wasn't even on that topic or anything. And she was talking about how she does these like little spells for fun and stuff. And they were trying to like make it like funny, like as if it was like a joke almost. But to me, the Lord was telling me like, hey, pay attention to this, right? And how could I not? Like it was really out of nowhere. Like it was weird, right? It didn't blend with the way the season had went and who I came to know her to be, okay? So there was just that, and I thought it was just selective to that specific thing, which I still found weird. Then we fast forward to tonight's episode, and perhaps it's because Halloween's around the corner, right? So maybe they're trying to like hone off that. But they had it tonight where in the competition, it was almost kind of satanic, where there's like candles set up and they're like around this altar and holding this mask up and stuff. Like it was just really bizarre to me, and I was like, what are they doing? I also noticed that tonight they were saying oh my God. Like, so usually in the past they cut that out, or they will show people saying oh my goodness, oh my gosh, you know, that kind of stuff, so that it's like politically correct, right? Not offensive. But tonight, there were a few times, I noticed like at least 3 or 4 times, they were saying, oh my God. And I was like, what? So they were also taking the Lord's name in vain. And keep in mind that this is not a show that typically does this. Like I said, this isn't my first time watching it. I've been watching this show for years. And I know that things go on like that. There is swearing and like, you know, intimacy and things like that. But it's always been edited out for what they show on, you know, on cable, like on TV, you know. And like I said, I've never had an issue in the past. I've never felt uncomfortable or anything like that. Has it always been perfect every season? No, I'm sure there's been the odd hiccup. But I just was, even for like me knowing this show, this is like, hey, what are they doing? Like, this is bizarre. First they got the one girl talking about witchcraft, then and saying she's a witch and talking about spells. Then they fast forward to where now, just a few like days later, they're showing this competition and they're saying, allowing them to say oh my God and stuff. And then at the end, when they were giving the nominations, normally how they always give the nominations, and for those of you that have watched the show, you'll know what I'm talking about if you're familiar, they will usually sit around the kitchen table, and then the HOH will come with their nominations and say who's going to be up for eviction, right, on the block. And tonight, they made them go, which was so unnecessary and weird. I've never one time in a season ever saw them give noms in a different way, ever. But tonight, after this competition, they had them go sit in that same like satanic setup room, but this time even worse, and pretended that the house guests that were available for nomination were voodoo dolls. And I'm like, what? So it just went from bad to worse. And now I'm wondering like, okay, well, what's in store for next week, right? Like, and so the point I have to say all this to say is that the Lord knows that I watch this show. He knows I've always watched this show. And he was aware I was seeing tonight's episode and going to see tonight's episode. And he was encouraging me to like keep my eyes peeled and pay attention to this. Not in a way of like entertaining me, but in a way of having me open my eyes to see what's going on, which is exactly what happened. So I don't feel entertained. I actually feel offended and I feel disturbed. And I hope I'm not the only one, right? So then this comes hot off the heels of other things I've noticed. Like, so for instance, there was a commercial I noticed for cereal, for Raisin Crisp cereal that's popular, right? And in that commercial that I first seen premiere, like, same thing within the last, like, 2 to 4 weeks, okay? The guy on there is saying, damn, this is good. Now, I know the word is only damn, but, like, kids watch, like, it's daytime television and stuff. You know, it's being shown on a Saturday at 2 p.m., like, and so they're like, you know how they're trying to, like, there's a contradiction here. Like, they're trying to come down. Then we got where Jimmy Kimmel is laughing and poking fun at a Christian man who was murdered. Then we have what I announced on my past, and I brought that up in a past message, right? Then I also brought it up in a message I put out a few days ago talking about how the Lord led me to see, because I don't go looking for this stuff. The Lord brings it to my attention and awareness. How there was this news broadcast of like local news somewhere in the States, and they were doing a news segment and they were having a conversation, these news anchors, and the one news anchor was talking about how homeless people should be forced to have to bow down to the government's regimes of what they expect them to do, right? And the other anchor said that not only do they agree with that statement, but that they feel that they should just be killed, because then it would be the remedy, that would be a solution, that would be the remedy to the ongoing homeless problem that we're having, okay? And so the Lord had told me in the past, when Jimmy Kimmel in the past was trying to poke fun at Christians months ago, that he was going to take Jimmy Kimmel out for that, okay? And that happened. Then the Lord told me that when that news anchor made that comment about the homeless people, that they were also going to go under wrath for those, because I already made a separate word about this, but we got to watch what we talk about and who we say it about and what we say, right? Because the Lord is coming after those that put their tongue on a chosen one, on a child of God, whether they make a comment against Christ, a comment against the body of Christ as a collective, a comment against chosen ones, a comment against me specifically, you specifically, chosen one, whoever, okay? I also talked to you all about, in a past message, there's somebody, I'm not going to name names, but there's somebody who, and this is on a side note too, there was a channel on YouTube that the Lord led me to, and this was last year. Because I've made so many words in the past about Jezebel, right? And the false prophets. And the Lord let me know that this supposed prophet, in quotes, because this was a false prophetic female, the Lord himself told me that. That's not my opinion or feeling. That's what the Lord told me. I have never seen this person's channel before ever, okay? But the Lord just randomly, happenstance, led me to their channel in this specific video. When I listened to this video, this false prophetic voice was talking on behalf of the Lord, but what they were saying was false. And not only did I know it was false, because it contradicted what I already knew in the Bible, because they were referencing something and it contradicted what I already knew. And second, the Lord had told me himself that this was a false prophet and had me go through listening to this message, keeping in mind that this isn't a channel I was subscribed to. It's not a channel that I followed or sought out or looked for. It wasn't a message I had been trying to find, and this channel person had put this message out days before this, okay? So it was completely just serendipity that I came across this message, and it was sent by the Lord. The Lord had told me that that was a false prophet. So I went ahead and commented on this video and basically spoke on behalf of the Lord and said my piece that the Lord had told me to say. They replied to what I said and were all like uppity and upset. Why? Because they felt convicted because they knew they were false, and I called them out on it, right? A true child of God called out a false child of God, and they felt offended, aka convicted, and so they had an issue with it, okay? So, okay, whatever, that was that. Fast forward to, this is now a year later, okay? And I had made a message about that. I had made a message. The Lord led me to record a video that day or the next day in regards to that false prophet and their false channel. And I did so, okay? Now, as usual, I didn't name any names or anything, and I kind of just moved on with life and forgot all about it. Then we fast forward to, this was like a month or so ago. I'm not going to name names unless the Lord leads me to, and he's not, okay? I had looked up a channel that I am subscribed to, that I do follow, and I have been subscribed to, and I've been following for a long time, okay? The Lord has confirmed to me that this is a true child of God. So the Lord will reveal to me who's false, but he'll also reveal to me who's real, right? And he will reveal this and confirm this, especially if I test the spirit. So I looked up this specific channel. And when I searched this channel's name, there were other videos that other so-called prophets, in quotation marks, had posted tagging this true child of God's name in their title, okay? And they were trying, so this, it sounds confusing. There's false prophets that are calling out a true prophet and trying to say that the true prophet is fake. But who is saying the true prophet is fake is a fake prophet trying to pose as real, okay? So basically, it's Jezebel trying to call out a child of God, basically. And so when I looked up the true child of God's channel handle, I found it, of course it popped up, but there was also subsequent videos from Jezebel false prophets that consider themselves prophets, but they're not. The Lord has revealed to me that they're not, calling out this true child of God prophet's name in their title. Do you want to know why they're trying to call out the true child of God's name in their title? Because they're trying to get clout, because they're false. So and in this message, in the tagline, they're trying to call out this true child of God's name and say, this is a witch, a false prophet. But in actuality, if that was the case, why are you trying to get attention off of their name? So when you look at their channel, okay, the videos that they put out that are titled whatever, they have, say, maybe 300 or 400 views. But then the message that they put out that has this true prophet's name in the title has like thousands of views. So they're trying to make it look, and again, these aren't my opinions. These aren't my feelings. This is what the Lord's told me, okay? They're trying to make it look like they're doing a favor to the body of Christ, like, oh, your number's called, I'm calling you out, I'm taking one for God and his kids by setting this record straight. I'm sorry, but if you're a true child of God, you're not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? The Lord has led me to false prophets. Not one time has he ever asked me to put their name in the title of my video, especially if they're like well-known popular channels and names and stuff, just to call them out. He's never once done that, okay? And if I ever felt inclined to do that, I would be taking that back to Lord immediately and not double checking, but triple checking to make sure I heard from the Lord accurately, because that would be a first, and that would contradict what God says in the Bible, would it not? So just the fact that this false prophet is trying to come off as a real prophet by blowing the whistle on a child of God, whether that child of God is false or real is irrelevant. You're showing that you're not a true child of God by doing that. And that's one. And for two, the child of God you're calling out is truly a child of God. So instead of it backfired, so instead of the false making the real look false, the false that is trying to look real looks false, and the real looks more real. You understand what I'm trying to say? And so the devil sent those false prophets in the name of Jezebel. But God has went and cleared the air. So this real prophet, this real child of God, this person is just continuing to put out messages like nothing happened. And whether they're aware of it or not, which they probably are, because the Lord leads us, true children of God, to understand and see and discern these things. If you think that a child of God doesn't know what you're doing, then it proves that you're not a child of God. Because a true child of God does know what you're doing, because the Lord reveals it to us. This is the thing this is the thing that Jezebel and these false ones don't understand, is that you're not smarter. You are literally trying to blindfold God. And you would be like, no, I'm not. I'm calling out a false prophet. No, you're trying to blindfold and bluff God is what you're doing, because God knows who his true children are. So therefore he reveals the truth to his children. So therefore God's kids know what you're doing, especially if you're false. I don't know, 10 times ahead of before you do. This is the thing I always talk about, okay? So whether this false channel person knows that this real child of God knows what they're doing or not, I am going to go so far as to say most likely that real child of God does know, but that real child of God is unbothered because they are a real child of God. And those who are real recognizes real, okay? So like attracts like. So false attracts false, real recognizes real. So because I know that child of God is real, God has revealed and confirmed to me that they are, I recognize the real in them, right? And so I see a spade for a spade. I see the fake is fake and the real is real. But that's a perfect example of a Jezebel spirit at work, literally. And so the first channel that I was speaking about, that the Lord led me to make the comment on their video, I did that and carried on with my life because I did what the Lord told me to. The Lord told me to check out this channel, check out this message, comment on it, and then carry on with my day. And that's what I did, right? But I did see that false channel person had responded and replied to my comment, and the way that they replied to the comment just revealed further how false they really were, because I basically hit them with truth and they hit me with offense, right? And that was, the Lord said that was fine, let them do it, because they think that they're really sticking it to me. But the truth is that it's right there publicly in their comment section for whoever, passes by, including true children of God, that the Lord leads to that channel to blow the whistle on them like he did with me. They're showing their hand. The false vessel is showing their hand by their comment. So while they think they're making me look some type of way, in actuality, they're making themselves look a type of way. So they're basically proving my point. You understand? But this is the thing that the Jezebel spirit doesn't understand. They lack the discernment because they're not truly of God. So that happened. Then when I fast forward, when I went to look for this other true child of God's channel, right? Because the Lord was leading me to do so. Their name popped up, but so did other videos from another different false prophet who's apparently familiar with the false prophet from the past, because they had not only tried to call out this child of God, right, but also tried to allege and allude that this true child of God had some sort of a hand in an involvement in bringing down the first false prophet's channel. And I didn't even know that first false prophet's channel had came to an end, okay? But I had mentioned this the other day, talking about how the Lord has already removed a lot of false prophets and Jezebels, okay? This is why one day their channel's there and the next day it's gone. And the Lord has revealed to me he hasn't just stopped at removing their platform. He is bringing endings to things in their life. Not just their physical endings like their channel, but spiritually things as well. They are experiencing endings in their life because they posed as a real prophet when they were actually a false Jezebel spirit. And the cherry on the cake is they're going so far as to try to put their tongue on, whether it's through keyboard or actual, mouth, like their mouth moving. Either way, they're trying to put their tongue on, whether it's their words or their thoughts, in a negative way towards God's true kids, okay? So when that first channel was out of line and out of order, on their comment with me and also speaking falsely on behalf of the Lord, that was the last straw for God. Okay, so then God brought their channel down. So if there's any child of God that was involved in that channel coming down or whatnot, if anything, it was actually me, not this other child of God that probably doesn't even know what this false prophet is talking about. You understand? I know it sounds confusing because I can't say names I'm not being led to, nor do I want to. That's not appropriate unless the Lord tells me to, and he hasn't. Okay, so this is the thing, is that beware of these ones that are trying to call out true prophets and say they're false, because a true prophet wouldn't do that. The Lord wouldn't lead them to do that. And secondly, if you're going to call it a false prophet, that's one thing. I mean, the Lord's led me to call it the Jezebel false prophets myself, but you wouldn't use names. And if you are going to go that far, why is the name in your title? Because that way, whenever somebody searches up that true child of God, then you know that your false video is going to show up. And it's a fine line there, because in my opinion, you're just trying to gossip. You're just trying to stir the pot and get clicks, which is exactly what happened. It was clickbait. This false prophet had 10 times the amount of views using that real child of God's name as opposed to just a normal generic title. If you're gonna do it, why wouldn't you just title your video like false prophets exposed, or like the Lord has led me to call out the Jezebel spirit? You know what I'm saying? Something to that effect. Why in your title, in the first 5 words, are you specifically using this child of God's name to get attention? Like, it just, no. You see what I'm saying? This is how Jezebel tries to skew around and play with perception. Okay? So anyways, I say all this to say that this is what the Lord has been showing me lately, is that this is Jezebel at work. Trying to, and I just put a word out the other day talking about this, that this is what they're going to try and do in this new season, is where they're going to try and desensitize everyday people so that they just accept this stuff as normal. Okay? They just think it's normal. Like, for instance, when that news anchor is talking about homeless people should just be taken out of here, that is completely inappropriate. Not only is that evil, but it's inappropriate. Or even Jimmy Kimmel's comments, okay? And so when the FCC gets involved, then they want to cry censorship. Oh, you're trying to censor me, you're trying to censor me. That's on purpose to try to start this war where the FCC and Trump and stuff, it's good that they stay on top of things. I'm not trying to say people should be censored, because we do have free speech, right? But if in this free speech, you're using your free speech to purposely talk inappropriately or wickedly or offensively, right? Because there's still good people out here that get offended when you're making fun or poking fun at someone who's been murdered, whether they follow God or not, right? It's just, it's not in good taste, right? Like, that's one thing, I don't know about you, but I know with me growing up, I always was told that was you don't speak bad of the dead, right? Whether you loved that person, didn't like that person, they were a saint or a sinner, you just didn't talk badly about the dead. You have respect for the dead, right? Just like you don't desecrate a cemetery or something, right? You know what I'm saying? It's respect. And so it's irrelevant of who Charlie Kirk was per se, or who Jimmy Kimmel is per se. You just don't do that. If the shoes were on the other feet and Jimmy Kimmel was in Charlie's shoes and Charlie was talking about Jimmy the way Jimmy was talking about Charlie, everyone would have had an uproar, right? But yet they're trying to make it like it's okay or digestible because it's Jimmy saying it about Charlie. You see what I'm saying? And so there's that. Then same with this whole homeless people thing. It's like that's not something that should ever be said by anyone at any time, any place. But they're trying to make it but because we're saying it about homeless people, not good people, but just homeless people, then it should be okay. It should slide. And then, like, these are just little things that I'm all tying into the message all in one here that the Lord's shown me separately, okay? Then, like I said, the commercial where they're trying to, I remember growing up, and this wasn't long ago, like maybe even 15, 20 years ago, there were songs that the radio would play, right? And they were popular songs, and we heard them on like music video channels and stuff, so we knew what words were really in there. But because there was a censorship thing, the radio was bleeping out certain words, okay? Like I remember there was one song, and it was Picture by Sheryl Crow and Kid Rock, and I mean, that's how old I am, right? I'm giving my age away. But in that song, he sings a line said, fueling up on cocaine and whiskey, okay? It's not an inappropriate, offensive song by any means, right? It was actually a really popular love song. But in the song, he says that, fueling up on cocaine and whiskey. And that's the only line in that whole song that's kind of like risque or, inappropriate, so to speak, offensive, okay? Anyways, the radio would bleep out the words cocaine and whiskey. Now, I knew that that's how the song went because I had heard it unbleeped out on music videos, right? But on the radio, they bleeped out cocaine and whiskey, so when that part would come, he'd say fueling up on and literally it would bleep out. And so my point to say that is, this is how like appropriate things used to be at one point, was that they understood that there was a time and place for this stuff. If we were at the club or the bar at 1 a.m. and that song came on, it probably wouldn't be censored or bleeped out, which would make sense because we're among adults, right? But they had enough sense to know that during the daytime when the radio is on, there's probably children listening to this, right? And even not just children, but senior citizens or something. It was to be not offensive and not be inappropriate. So to not offend anyone or upset anyone, they were respectful enough to bleep those parts out, right? You know what I'm trying to say? And so now we have it where Jimmy Kimmel's been canceled because of his inappropriate offensive language, which is rightfully so. But then he's trying to turn around and cry, censorship, censorship. But yet the Lord is showing me, well, there's not a whole lot of censorship going on, because things that would have been censored just, a year or 5 or 10 years ago are now just okay. There is no time. I've been alive a long time. I don't remember too many commercials that I saw on TV where they were using the word damn. And so when he's eating the cereal, he says, damn, this is good. Why wouldn't he just say, man, this is good? Why do they specifically script in the word damn, you see? And then even with my son, he watches YouTube Kids. And so I have the age bracket set on there for ages 5 to 8 on the setting, okay? And it'll still show sometimes, right, inappropriate ads, even if you're watching something for kids. And if you're not on kids YouTube, but you're on regular YouTube and you watch a kids show, say you're on regular YouTube and you watch like, I don't know, like Sesame Street or I'm trying to think of something else, like Thomas and his friends, like Thomas the Tank Engine or something, right? Something for kids. They will still show ads for scary movies and like alcohol and things like that. Does YouTube not know that you're literally watching a children's video? And when you upload videos, you say, is this for kids or not? And so I'm assuming if you're uploading a kid's video, like a cartoon, like Thomas and his friends or something, you would click, is this for kids? Yes. So if you're uploading kids content, even if it's on normal YouTube and you say it's for kids, why then, when there's ad breaks, is YouTube showing 18 plus rated R movie ads on kids YouTube? Why is, or whether it's on kids YouTube or, you know what I'm saying, or regular YouTube, but on kids programming, why is that a thing? And so this is the thing, is that they've been at this for a while, is that they're trying to desensitize people and make it okay that these things are happening. And they're doing it subtly by slipping it in little bits and pieces, little nuances, so that it kind of is almost subliminal, so that it goes over people's heads. And then the more that people just digest it and carry on with their life, or maybe they notice, but they just think it's a one-off, like I did originally with the witch thing on Big Brother, the more that they think that it's okay to just continue. It starts out with a couple sprinkles of salt, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, they're dumping the whole shaker. You know what I'm saying? It goes too far. And so we have to especially watch out for this as we're coming into the Halloween season, because basically Halloween has went for a whole month now. It's no longer catered to the last week of October. Now they start putting out Halloween stuff in September, and they start doing Halloween for a whole month, from October 1st to November 1st, right? In decorations and preparation. And so, like, I'm already seeing that where they're trying to turn everyday types of things, like food commercials, news clips, like I said, shows that have been on for years, seasons after season, like Big Brother, for instance. They're trying to give things this, like, especially at this time of year, as we're about to enter like the Halloween month, they're trying to give things this like inappropriate offensive spin, whether it's through something being sexualized or through poor language, talking about inappropriate material like drugs, sex, or drinking, you know, and they're trying to even market it towards kids. They know that kids listen to the radio, and that's the other thing too, is, you know what I noticed the other day, listening to the same radio station that, because I've lived in the same city for decades, right? So when I was talking about how in the past they bleeped those PG-13 words out, right? Now today they're playing like Kendrick Lamar and Nicki Minaj on the everyday radio, you know, and we know what kinds of songs those are, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we've went from censoring PG-13 words out, like damn and whiskey and stuff, to where now we're not only are we saying those, we've upped the ante where we're saying like those words and then some, right? The next level. So we were bleeping out PG-13 words, and now we're allowing R-rated words. So PG-13 is nothing. Now we're even letting R-rated words slip by, okay? But they're well aware that children can come into earshot of the radio, right? I mean, it's the radio. It should be, if anything, that should be the most PG-13 thing out there, right? That no one should be offended listening to your local radio station. And then even with TV, like I said, this saying damn in this commercial is being put on like daytime television, and they'll run this ad like 5 times an hour. And so pretty soon your 3 or 4-year-old's going to be saying damn, and they'll think that they heard it from the parents. No, they got it from TV. Or you open up your YouTube and you let your 4-year-old watch Thomas and His Friends on their device, their tablet or your cell phone, and next thing you know, your kid is having nightmares, and you look and see, well, it's because on the commercial breaks on that Thomas and Friends cartoon kids content, they're showing rated R ads for horror movies and stuff like that, and drinking commercials, okay? You wouldn't want your child to watch that, but you're not watching an adult show and this is being shown. Your child is watching a kid's show and this is being shown, right? Then say they're sitting with you and you're watching daytime TV, or it's even on the background. Well, now the news broadcast is, the news anchors are talking, and they're talking about how homeless people should just be killed. Okay, you see what I'm saying? And then there's you at 6 o'clock at night, you're watching Big Brother, you're 30 episodes in, the show's wrapping up, you've been watching it for 2 months, and all of a sudden they're doing an elimination round using voodoo dolls and talking about sacrifices and making the house guests sit around a circle like an altar in like a, witchcraft circle type thing. Like, what? And so anyways, so I could go on and on. There's example after example after example. The Lord has been showing me a lot of things. And this has only been in this last month in particular that I've seen an uptick increase in this, right? This is something that's not new, unfortunately. However, there's something going on, okay? There's something brewing up. They're purposely doing this. This whole like Jimmy talking about Charlie thing, the news anchors whining and crying about censorship, trying to say we should have free speech. They're doing this all on purpose to try to throw out like censorship and FCC, but you have to remember it's not that FCC and censorship are doing these things because they're trying to rain on our parades. We have children and seniors and stuff who, you know, don't want to listen or see inappropriate images or hear inappropriate things, right? And even like, I don't watch horror movies at all, and I don't even watch the ads. If I'm watching something, and I don't watch anything like inappropriate like that, I don't. But it's gotten so bad that I'll even be watching like 2020 or something, right? Or 48 Hours Mystery, and all of a sudden there's ads for even like on certain channels if it's like a game show or something, and then all of a sudden there's ads being shown for like super scary horror movies, and the horror movies they put out these days are like really demonic, right? Because of advancements in like cinematography and things like that, they go to the next level. And so the Lord will have me mute the TV or close my eyes or like pull the blanket over my eyes if I'm laying in bed, right? Like something so where I'm protecting my eye gates and my ear gates so that I'm not even like listening to it in the background or seeing it, okay? The Lord does not want me taking in any type of demonic things like that in my ears to hear or in my eyes to see. So I will stop me from absorbing the material, right? And if sometimes I accidentally do because they try to sprinkle it in, you know, even when I'm scrolling through my For You page on YouTube or Facebook, there's like little, you know, inappropriate, you know, demonically fueled things that'll just pop up. And I swear it's because they listen to me talk like they do to all of us, and they eavesdrop on me, and they know that I speak about God and I'm a child of God. So they're purposely trying to do it it's the Jezebel spirit, right? Trying to bother me or upset me. No different than how that Jezebel spirit is purposely trying to tag a child of God's name in their video to purposely not just try and shame this child of God falsely, but also to disturb or upset that child of God that may come across it, right? But that's okay, because the Lord said that those that do this, like so there was the first false prophet that the Lord led me to because of the false prophet speaking falsely on behalf of the Lord. And then also the cherry on the cake was getting, you know, disrespectful to me because they felt convicted on behalf of the Lord. Shortly after that, or at some point or whatnot, I don't know, the Lord cut that false prophet off at the knees, like he told me he was going to, okay? And so that false prophet, their channel, I looked for their channel title, and I can't find it. I can't find a stitch of material of them, any evidence that they were ever even on YouTube, right? And this was after the Lord had led me to make the message not too long ago, talking about that's what the Lord said he has done and will do. So in the past he's done this, and in the future he's going to do this, where these false prophets, their days are numbered. So some of them, and like that false prophet had subscribers. They actually had, like, I can't remember exactly, but it was like between 1,000 and 5,000 subs. So they actually had some sort of an audience. And so there's like, you know, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people tuning in and listening to a false prophet. But they don't know that this prophet is false, because this prophet is Jezebel and trying to act like they're real, okay? Then they're trying to bolster their credibility by trying to call out another true prophet, child of God, that's more well known than they are, and say, oh, they're a false prophet, just to try to garner even more credibility or validity for themselves, right? When they've been false the whole time. So there's that. And so their channel was taken down or whatever it was, but the Lord told me that that's not the only ending that the Lord brought to that false prophet's life was their channel. There was other endings that they had experienced behind the screens as well, okay? Now, there's this other false prophet who sounds like is in cahoots with that first one. This second one, same thing goes. This is a different one, but this one is also a false prophet. This one has a couple thousand subs as well, and has been operating on the platform falsely for some time now. Whether they started out genuine or not is irrelevant at this point, and has been recently for months now. They are falsely operating right through the Word of God. And then on top of it, they are trying to allude that a true prophet, a true child of God is false. And so just like what happened with the first one, the Lord has revealed to me that it's not a matter of if, but when. In time, he's going to also cut that second prophet off at the knees, like what happened to the first one, right? And so this is the thing, is that real recognizes real, like I said. So those who truly are of God know that the move that this false prophet is doing shows that they are in fact false. Because if they genuinely really were true, like they're alleging they are, they wouldn't be moved to do this in the first place. And the Lord has made it look so see-through, transparent, and obvious that this is what they're trying to do, right? And so it's bringing no shade or shame or harm to the true child of God, because the Lord is keeping that true child of God unbothered. And this is what the Lord does with this Jezebel spirit, is that the Lord handles the Jezebel spirit and leaves his true child unbothered, untouched, unscathed. And this true child of God, this true anointed prophet, just continues putting out messages like normal, right? Whether they're aware of what this other false prophet is doing or not, about their name behind the scenes. Okay? And so then we have, so that's that. Then, and so on that, I'm just going to say, so keep your tongue off. Don't think negatively or speak negatively about a true child of God. If you don't like them, that's one thing. You don't have to like people, right? You don't have to. But you're going to respect them. And that's how God sees it. God sees it as like, whether you love my child or hate my child, you have, there's no one forcing you to like everybody, right? But you're going to respect my child, and you are not going to come and try and shame them and discredit their name and discredit their anointing that I gave them, especially when you're a false prophet yourself. That's like the pot trying to call the kettle black type of a thing, right? So God intervenes and makes it so that nobody is buying what this false prophet is selling anyways. And if anyone does come to purchase, it's just false buying from false. And so therefore it cancels itself out. The real ones that are real can see square through what this false prophet's trying to do. Meanwhile, the true child of God prophet that the Lord truly anointed just carries on receiving messages from the Lord, putting them out, and still receiving thousands of views and attention. Meanwhile, this false prophet is floundering, and their life is starting to flush down the toilet because of what they chose to do, and speak falsely on behalf of not only God, but of a true child of God. And because God doesn't want anyone speaking falsely on him, but just like a true parent would in real life, your parent is going to go to bat for their child, right? If you're a parent, you're going to go to bat for your child. Your parent would have went to bat for you. God is our Father. He goes to bat for us. And so this is why I say it's not a matter of if, but when you're going to get cut off, spiritually, physically, or both, if you are trying to go against a child of God. And so if you don't like them, okay, cool, just keep your mouth shut then. Just don't say anything, And if the Lord leads you to speak on behalf of them, I would be triple checking with the Lord that that's what he told you to say. And, and if that's still the case, you should be going about it in a different way than purposely trying to put their name in your title just to get clickbait and attention. That's not how the Lord would lead you. Like for instance, I'll give an example. I know these two false prophets' channel handles. I know what they are. But when I post this word, I'm going to say something like, media's trying to desensitize us, or like the Lord is dealing with the false ones, or, I don't know. I'll wait till the Lord gives me my title, but I'm making an example. I'm not going to use the channel handles, names, and titles and stuff of these people in this word, even though I know that they are false. But yet Jezebel feels so brazen that someone is real, and they're trying to call them out. And do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, come on. So the Lord wanted me to address that. So this is the Jezebel all at work. So this message has a lot of little different points, but they all connect together as always. This is the Jezebel Leviathan spirit at work. Okay, I put a word out about this just the other day, is that this is what they're going to be trying to do. They're going to be trying to enter into this new season, especially with this month of leading up to October, and the month of October, right? Trying to subtly, sneakily, behind the scenes, try and like desensitize things to water it down, so that like they'll start small, where they're using like the word damn, or they're just showing like this witchcraft voodoo doll stuff on Big Brother, and where the news anchors are, because the Lord says that they're trying to test and see how far they can get, how much can they push the envelope. If they get and they're also using this Jimmy Kimmel thing as an experiment as well too, by the way, just to test the waters. If they get away with it and they cause an uproar, and everybody and their dog is going, yes, get out of here, censorship, we should be able to say what we want, when we want, how we want, which is what they're trying to want everyone to do. If everyone jumps on the bandwagon, then they're going to go full tilt with it, right? They're gonna go full blown with it. But if they get blowback and people are saying, no, I'm offended, I don't like this, and they're in the minority as opposed to the majority, then they'll tone it back and wait and strike again. Because this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to corrupt children, and they're trying to change the agenda to where what is usually accepted or viewed as politically correct, right? We know what's politically correct. They're slowly but surely, bit by bit, trying to nitpick and unravel it and take it out bit by bit, so that eventually they poke enough holes into it over time that people just kind of give up. It's no different than the whole LGBTQ, gay, transgender thing, right? You were not talking like that 10, 20 years ago. Like, you would not. Like, people, there was the odd person that did, but you were in the minority. If you were talking like that with those words, those buzzwords and those acronyms, you were in a minority. The majority of people were not recognizing that, okay? Well, now we know that today, they not only are those buzzwords recognized, they're considered a part of everyday speech now. Now they even have their own month out of the 12 months of the year. They've adopted one of God's well-known symbols of a rainbow as their own, okay? So they've literally done a 180 where they went from being the minority to the majority. And even if the majority of people aren't like that, they've managed to get over time, by poking enough holes into it and desensitizing people, to get the majority of people to agree with it and go on board with it and say it's okay and accept it, right? And so they're trying to do the very same thing now they're trying to run that same agenda again today in 2025, where they're trying to permit and allow demonic things, horror movies to the next level, swear words, inappropriate language, things like this, and just slip it in where they can. And if they get a big pushback, they just go, oopsies, we didn't mean to do it. You're right. We apologize. It was offensive. We shouldn't have done it. Or they're going to cry this censorship, free speech thing, like what Jimmy Kimmel's doing. Okay. But if they don't get pushback and people slowly eat it and digest it over time, just like when you eat, if you eat a whole bunch at once really fast, you feel sick. But if you eat little bits over time, you digest it properly, right? That's what they're trying to do, is feed it to us, the masses, the public, in little digestible bites, so that as we bite it and chew and swallow, we digest it, over time, okay? Little bits given to us over time, so that we start to, as they up the ante and snowball it, we are okay with it. We're okay with it. And that's exactly what they did with the whole LGBTQ, gay, lesbian, et cetera, et cetera. That's exactly how they did it. That's how it went from something politically incorrect to politically correct, right? And now they're trying to do that all over again, but this time with like witchcraft, voodoo, demonic things, etc., and they're trying to make that mainstream now. You understand? You see what I'm saying? And so they're starting out with like not bleeping songs on the radio anymore, adding in the odd buzzword on everyday, daytime TV commercials, showing rated R horror movie ads, scary ones on children's videos, like kids content. These things are not accidental. Having slips of the tongue where Jimmy Kimmel's poking fun at someone who was murdered, where he's talking poorly about Christians in the body of Christ, and haha, knee slapper, it's so funny, tee-hee, ha-ha-ha, right? And then even having these news anchors talking like this about homeless. So they're subtly trying to subliminally message these things in and pepper it and sprinkle it into like our radio, our TV, and these are things that I'm old enough to know the difference of. I know how radio was. I know how commercials were. I know how, kids' content was in the past. I know how, people would have been frowned upon if they said some of these things 10, 15, 20 years ago. Because the majority were against this type of lingo and language. It was only a minority that were all for it, and now they're trying to swing the pendulum the other way and get the majority on board, so that when me or you come along and say, hey, this is inappropriate, this is offensive, this is not good for children, this is not right, that then they can say, oh, just, you're in a minority, go away, the majority of people agree with this, and then they turn around and sick on you and say you're a hater and you're hateful and all this stuff, and all you're trying to do is stand up for what's appropriate for the next generation. Do you see what I'm trying to say here? So anyways, long story short, that's the message that the Lord has to say tonight, and there's a lot of good material in here, and we're just starting to see it as we're entering in this fall season, where they started to lay the groundwork for this in the summer season that we're leaving, right? They started to introduce this, and I'm completely appalled. Like, I don't know what Big Brother is doing. Like, unless maybe they're just doing this because it's close to Halloween, but even still, even if that's the agenda, they've ran this show in the summer. They show this show in the summer every year, right? This is not new. It always goes until the end of September generally, right? And this is the first season, and it's been on for like 25 seasons or something, that I personally recall them doing something this like, evilish, like satanic, demonic kind of a thing, right? I don't remember them ever doing this before, and even if it's supposed to pay an homage to Halloween, today is like September 21st, right? We're over a month away from Halloween. It just seems strange. And again, the first 3/4 of the season, they weren't doing this type of stuff. It's not like it was the theme of the summer or something. They just started introducing it in the last couple of weeks, when it started with trying to say that the one house guest does magic and magic spells and is a witch and does voodoo, and that was strange and weird in and of itself. And then you fast forward to here now 2 weeks later, and this is what they're trying to introduce for the night for competitions and stuff. And it's just completely unnecessary. There's so many other themes and different tactics that they could have used instead that would have been less offensive and a lot more appropriate, right? Like, I normally would have never had an issue with a child catching 5 minutes of the show, and tonight I would have. And so, but this is what they're trying to do. And so if everybody comes and says, hey, I don't like that, that wasn't right, then they'll put it to the side for a while and come back and try again later, because this is the agenda that they want to push. This is what they want to do. And they're going to introduce it slowly and insidiously over time. But if everyone accepts it and says, hey, great show, it was real good, great season, I loved every minute of it, everything was great, then they're going to take that as feedback that, hey, people aren't bothered, let's go to the next level. We started out small and people ate it up and digested it and they came back for seconds. Let's up the ante the second time around, right? And so this is what they're trying to do. They're purposely going extreme to try to test the waters and see what can they get away with here. Now with this Jimmy thing, if everyone says, yeah, censorship, get out of here, we don't want censorship, get out of here with censorship, then that'll be considered like Jimmy's used as a experiment, so to speak, like a guinea pig, to where it's like, oh, okay, see, people agree with you that, you know, you can say these off the cuff inappropriate things because people don't want censorship. But if everyone says, no, I'm in favor of censorship, you were out of line and out of order, you shouldn't have said this, that, and the third, well, then they're going to know that they have to just put it aside and put on the back burner, and they'll revisit it at a later date when the water calms down. But an idea of them stopping it all together, hey, we were wrong, we shouldn't approach this isn't appropriate or proper, that's not in the cards. They literally, this is what they're trying, this is where the world is trying to head. And I talked about this in the past message about good versus evil, where the good guys take a hit and then the bad guys take a hit, and we volley back and forth, right? And so this is what they're trying to bring up next. This is the next phase that they're trying to bring the world into, is that the previous phase was trying to make people okay with and stomach and digest gay, lesbian, transgender, LGBTQ, all that kind of stuff. And that happened. It swung from the minority to the majority. And if you said, hey, I'm not okay with this, it's not appropriate, then people just called you a hater and carried on anyways, right? And made you look like the bad guy, to try to make the wicked look good and the righteous look bad. That's exactly what Jezebel does. That's her MO, is to make the false look real and the real look false. Going back to the false prophets, that's exactly what Jezebel was doing, was trying to make herself look like the real prophet and make the real prophet look like the false one. But the Lord has already revealed who the false one is and who the real one is, and the real ones know who's real, and the false ones who think that the false is real proves that they're false, right? Like attracts like. So, yeah, anyways, that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to test the waters, experiment, see what kind of reaction they get in return for pushing the envelope too far. They're trying to bring this plan out, right? And that if you go against it, then you're uptight, you're a hater, you know, you this, you that, and trying to make the righteous look wrong and the wicked look right. And this is something that Team Devil, the devil agenda, is trying to do, right? And God's kids are the ones that are trying to be a united front against it. Just like with the whole LGBTQ thing, right? It was the righteous ones, the godly ones that saw the issue there. It was the wicked ones that thought it was just fine. And then they tried to bully and gang up on God's kids, right? And so this is this everyday battle behind the scenes, where it's not in our face, but it's still in our face. It's not in our face, but it is in our face at the exact same time, right? This is on your social media. This is on your TV. This is on your radio. This is like, it's in your face. But the fact that you don't really pay much attention or notice it, that's exactly what they're trying to go for. It's subliminal messages. That's what a subliminal message is. And I've talked about subliminal messages in the past too, on my past videos, is where they try to get your brain to accept something in your subconsciousness, to where before you know it, when you look around, notice, hey, this is weird, this isn't right, it's too late. It's already been passed under your nose for so long that it went unnoticed for so long that by the time you wake up and smell the coffee, it's too late, right? By the time you notice, hey, coffee's been made, you go look and the coffee's almost all been drank. You see, it's like that. And this is how they try to do it, is through subliminal subconsciousness mind control thing, where they get people to, if they methodically distribute it in such a certain way, strategic way, they get people to accept things, whether it's right or wrong, okay? And try and make it okay. And so, yeah, if they have a secret agenda that they want to, try and push and make demonic things mainstream, witchcraft mainstream, voodoo mainstream, they want to make evil normal and righteous weird and wrong and things like that. And if the righteous have something to say about it, that they're the bad guy, then that's exactly what they're going to try and do. And they're going to start out in slow little doses, like allowing weird things to be said in songs on radios, commercials, TV shows, so that if they're hoping kids do hear it and see it, so that they can grow up and that can be a part of their subconsciousness as they develop, so that it can plant more evil, corrupt seeds in them from an early, so that even if you're a good parent and you don't let your child listen to the radio or let your child watch everyday TV, you protect them and cover them. But then when that child goes to a friend's house one day, they're absorbing it at the friend's house. Or if you think, oh, it's okay, they watch Thomas the Tank Engine video on my tablet or my phone, they're seeing these ads when you're in the bathroom. And like, if I said, hey, let me play this horror movie ad for your 4-year-old, you would refuse it. But yet your 4-year-old is seeing that type of stuff on commercial breaks, on TV shows. Like, you could be watching The Price is Right, and it could be 2 p.m. and they'll show an ad like that for a horror movie. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like a horror movie like we had back in the 90s. Like, these are horror movies made with like very realistic type of productions and stuff these days, right? And then the child is traumatized at the age of 4 or 5 because they've seen some sort of horror movie ad that, you know, they wouldn't have seen otherwise. And here you are as a good parent trying to protect them, but you can't, because society is trying to slip it in everywhere. And even if you shelter that child and they go to a family member's house, the family member could say, oh, okay, well, I'll put on, you know, I don't know, some sort of a kid show on YTV or something, and then there's an inappropriate ad on there of some sort. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, I'm going to wrap this message up now, but yeah, I'll probably be back with more developments on this as the Lord leads me to. But yes, long story short, I was just very appalled and disturbed by what Big Brother was doing tonight. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see if people think like me, because it's groupthink, right? If they think it was weird and strange and out of character and inappropriate as well, or do they just digest it and think, oh, that was a good show, you know, very interesting, very creative. I love the new creative productions, or whatever it may be, right? So it'll be interesting to see how these types of things are digested moving forward. So the more people that can push back in groups and say this is not right, because this seems like this is how they're trying to do it, is they're trying to take the things that are wrong and make them right, and the things that are right and make them wrong. And like I said, that's the definition of Jezebel. That right there is how Jezebel operates. That is her MO. Make the bad look good and the good look bad. Make the right look wrong and the wrong look right. You know, make evil look good. Make righteousness look bad. That's the whole agenda right there in a nutshell. So anyways, just keep your eyes out, you know, for these types of things. If you pay attention, you'll see them yourself if you haven't already. This message may be one of revelation and or confirmation. Maybe you've noticed these things too. And this is a confirmation that no, you're not on another planet. This is what they're trying to do. And they're going to be trying to snowball it and escalate it, right? But hopefully the Lord will intervene and shut it down for our better good and for our behalf, especially for our children, right? So on that note, I will leave this message here. I know it'll find the right ones in its right and perfect timing. And yeah, as always, if you come across this message and you're offended, or you think something, your nose is turned up at myself or any other child of God, then you are part of the issue. You're a Jezebel, right? You have a Jezebel spirit on you, and you need to go to the Lord and repent and get that spirit off you. So on that note, I will leave this here. The Lord will send the right ones to it in its right and perfect timing. I hope it finds you well. Take care, and God bless.